Thank you, Chairwoman Velasquez, and I appreciate you bringing up the fact that Ms. Yellen was not here today, and thank you for doing that on behalf of the committee. Administrator Guzman, as a member on the Republican side of the aisle, I can assure you that every colleague that is on the committee that I've served with in both last Congress and this has tried to, in a bipartisan way, pass bills that are going to help all of the American people, particularly our small businesses in this instance, get from one side of the coronavirus to the other. And we did that in a number of ways with a bunch of different programs, but we wanted to treat everyone equally. And just last Thursday, I, along with my fellow Republicans, sent you a letter talking about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. And we don't really believe that everyone is being treated equally when it comes to that particular program. For whatever reason, the Biden administration, the Democrats, put together a priority list which prioritizes a lot of different restaurant owners, and they're all great. We want to help them all. But for whatever reason, the priority list, the people who weren't on that list weren't allowed to be funded at this time because you closed the whole portal the very day that the priority list was set to end sending in applications. For the record, can you explain to us the characteristics of the people that are bar and restaurant owners who were not on the priority list?
Sure, of course. And the initial outreach that SBA did was extensive with the National Restaurant Association as well as the Independent Restaurant Coalition to reach all of the businesses. We informed everyone that this was first come, first serve, and that everyone should apply, despite what the processing priority was going to be for those first 21 days. And I think that's reflected in the 372,000 applications. Only 214,000 of those are for the underserved or priority groups, which includes, of course, veterans, women, and socially and economically.
Who isn't on the priority list? That was my question.
Well, the priority list includes women, veterans, and socially and economically disadvantaged individuals.
Who is not on the priority list?
Those individuals that don't fall into those categories if they're not socially or economically disadvantaged. And all outlined.
I'll reclaim my time. It would be helpful if we just be honest about it. So anyway, the portal closes. The only people at that point who are going to be funded are people on the priority list. 100,000 or more bar and restaurant owners across the country that aren't part of the priority at this point won't be funded. They happen to be, let's just be honest with it, white men that own bars and restaurants. Those are the folks. How is that not discriminatory or even outright racist?
Well, white men who either have partners who fall into those categories, it's not 100% ownership, it's 51%. In addition, veterans are able to access this program. And what I would say is that the priority, while the application closed, we have all those applications and we're beginning to process all applications non-priority as well. There were also small business set-asides. And so those, some of those small business set-asides remain. And so those will also, businesses that fall into those categories will have an opportunity to be funded.
But those are the only people that weren't part of the priority. So it makes sense to me that would be discrimination in any sense. The other thing I'd add is that how can we be sure that illegal aliens aren't receiving this money before U.S. citizens?
We know that restaurants are job creators, clearly, and immigrant entrepreneurs just as much so. They're all job creators. They're all tax-paying. You have to be based in the U.S., tax-paying entity in order to access this program, and that's the threshold that we've followed. So
there's no assurance of that. Look, I think it's bad enough that when the federal government picks winners and losers, that's socialist policies, and to do so based on race, and even putting illegal aliens ahead of U.S. taxpayers, to me, doesn't make any sense. We should all be treated equally. We should all have the same opportunity. And right now, it seems like there's a big segment of our population who happen to be bar and restaurant owners who are not being treated equally. And I hope we would reject that type of racial politics. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back, and now we recognize the gentleman from Minnesota.